I keep a list of questions I would have asked Harold Stone if I had met him before he died in 1980. I never met him. I've been adding to the list since 2019, when I interviewed his daughter in a care home in Louisville. She was 84. She brought a cardboard box containing 12 of her father's diaries, 3 franchise agreements, and a photograph of him standing beside a 1949 Ford with Kentucky plates. The car is important. I'll come back to it. This is a story about what a man does when he is 62 years old and the highway takes everything. My name is Ray Okafor. I'm a financial journalist. I've interviewed 300 founders in 30 years. Harold Stone is the only one who started at 62 with 105 pounds and a pressure cooker. Here is what happened. On May 17, 1952, the United States government completed a 23-mile section of Interstate 25 that bypassed the town of Corbin, Kentucky. Prior to completion, Route 31 carried all north-south traffic through Corbin. Harold Stone had operated a roadside restaurant on Route 31 since 1921. 31 years. The restaurant served breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It had 42 seats. It specialized in pressure-cooked fried chicken, prepared using a proprietary spice blend and cooking method that Stone had developed in 1939. The chicken was remarkable. People drove 40 miles out of their way to eat it. In the 6 months following the completion of Interstate 25, traffic past Stone's restaurant fell by 94%. Monthly revenue in April 1952 was £8,400. By October 1952, it was £340. The restaurant closed on November 12, 1952. Harold Stone was 62 years old. His Social Security payment was £105 per month. He owned one material asset, a pressure cooker, 12 containers of spice blend, and the knowledge of how to use them to produce fried chicken that people had previously driven 40 miles to eat. On January 8, 1953, Harold Stone loaded the pressure cooker, the spice blend, and a suitcase of clothing into a 1949 Ford. He began driving to restaurants across Kentucky, Tennessee, and Ohio. His proposal was identical at each location. He would cook his chicken in their kitchen using their ingredients and his method. He would train their staff. If they agreed to add it to their menu, he would take a royalty of 4 cents per piece sold. 4 cents. He slept in the Ford. It was his transportation and his bedroom. Between January 1953 and March 1955, Harold Stone received 1,009 rejections. I have tried to imagine this. Not the rejections themselves. Rejection is ordinary. I mean the specific arithmetic of it. 1,009 restaurant owners who looked at a 62-year-old man with a pressure cooker and said no. How many rejections per week? How many miles between them? How many nights sleeping in a 1949 Ford in January, in February, in Ohio? Stone kept diaries. They are not emotional documents. They record locations, dates, names, outcomes. There are very few personal observations. On March 3, 1954, he wrote, "Drove 212 miles today, no in Lexington, no in Richmond, no in Winchester. Ford making noise. Chicken, good." On April 3, 1955, Pete Harmon, owner of a restaurant in Salt Lake City, agreed to Stone's franchise terms. By December 1955, Harmon's restaurant was selling 400 pieces of Stone's chicken per day. By 1960, Stone had 400 franchise agreements. By 1964, he had 600. On July 19, 1964, Harold Stone sold the company to a group of investors for £1.2 million. He retained a salary of £20,000 per year and the contractual right to appear in all company advertising. The company was sold again in 1971 for £84 million. It was sold again in 1986 for £840 million. It currently generates £4.2 billion in annual revenue. Harold Stone died on December 16, 1980. Between 1964 and 1980, he appeared in every piece of advertising the company produced. Television, print, radio, billboards. He wore a white suit and a string tie. He smiled. He held chicken. He said the lines they wrote for him. He appeared in those advertisements because it was the only way he could remain connected to the thing he had built. Here is the loss. In 1965, the new owners changed the gravy recipe. Stone objected. He said it was wrong. He said it publicly. He said it in interviews. He said it to executives. He said it to anyone who would listen. He was right. It was wrong. Nobody changed it back. For 16 years, Harold Stone appeared in advertisements for a product he believed had been corrupted. He kept appearing because the advertising contract was the only formal connection he retained to the company. If he stopped appearing, he would have no connection at all. I think about this often. A man who drove 1,009 rejections in a Ford that was also his bedroom, who built a company worth £4 billion from a recipe and 4 cents per piece, who spent the last 16 years of his life smiling in advertisements for chicken he believed was wrong. He never stopped saying it was wrong. Nobody listened. I told you the car was important. In 2019, I tried to find the 1949 Ford. Stone's daughter did not know what had happened to it. None of the remaining franchise owners I contacted knew. I found a reference in a 1961 interview where Stone mentioned he had finally sold the old Ford after signing his 200th franchise agreement. I am not a reasonable person about details. I spent 4 months tracking bills of sale through Kentucky DMV records. I found the sale. March 6, 1961. Stone sold the Ford to a scrapyard in Corbin for £35. The scrapyard kept logs. They are stored in a county records facility in Lexington. I drove there. I paid £12 for access. I found the entry. I found the key. The 1949 Ford was crushed on March 14, 1961. 8 days after Harold Stone signed his 200th franchise agreement. I do not know if Stone knew the car had been crushed on that date. I do not know if he would have found that meaningful. I think he would have found it funny. I never met Harold Stone. I think about that sometimes, the specific things I would have asked him. I keep a list. I keep adding to it. The list currently contains 47 questions. Question number 1. What does a man of 62 have that a man of 32 does not? I have interviewed 300 founders in 30 years. I ask all of them some version of this question. What gave you the capacity to start? Where did the belief come from? Most of them say experience, or resilience, or I knew I could do it. I have learned that these answers are almost always false. Not intentionally false, retroactively false. The story a person tells after the thing is built is not the story that was true while they were building it. What does a man of 62 have that a man of 32 does not? It is not experience. It is not wisdom. It is not resilience. It is the specific knowledge that time is finite. A 32-year-old with a failing restaurant thinks, I have time to try something else. A 62-year-old with 105 pounds and a recipe thinks, this is it. This is the last hand. Harold Stone was not brave. He was out of options. I think that is the most important thing I have learned in 30 years of interviewing founders. The ones who built the most were often the ones who had nothing left to lose. I do not find this comforting. I find it true. In 1978, Stone gave an interview to a business magazine. The interviewer asked him what he was most proud of. Stone said, "The chicken was perfect in a '64. It is not perfect now, I told them." They did not listen. The interviewer asked, "Do you regret selling the company?" Stone said, "I regret the gravy." He died 2 years later. The company still uses his image. The gravy is still wrong. I would have asked him about the car. I would have asked him what it felt like to sleep in it on the 900th rejection. On the 1000th, I would have asked him what he thought about in those moments. I would have asked him if he knew the car was crushed 8 days after his 200th franchise agreement. I would have asked him if he ever tasted the gravy after 1964. His daughter told me he did, once in 1976, at a franchise location in Tennessee. He took one bite. He put his fork down. He said, "I told them." Question 47 on my list, the one I added most recently, is this. Did you know, when you were 62 and sleeping in the Ford, that you were building something worth £4 billion? Or did you just know you were out of time? I think I know the answer. I think the answer is the second one. I think that is why it worked. I am 58 years old. I have been a financial journalist for 30 years. I have never built anything. I keep adding to the list. Question 48 is about the first franchise agreement. The one Stone signed in 1952 in the back office of a restaurant in Salt Lake City with a man named Pete Harmon. The gravy was perfect then. Stone had spent 6 months teaching Harmon the system, the pressure cooker method, the 11 herbs and spices, the exact temperature, the exact time. He checked it himself. Every batch, for 6 months. Harmon's restaurant made more in the first month than it had made in the previous year. Stone took 4 cents on every chicken sold. By 1955, there were 9 franchises. By 1960, there were 200. By 1963, there were 600. The gravy was still perfect. The board meeting was on March 11, 1964. I have the minutes. Someone, the minutes don't record who, said, "Colonel, the gravy takes 17 minutes. We need it down to 8. Stone said, "Then you don't serve it until it's ready." The someone said, "We lose money on every minute past 8. Stone said, "You'll lose more when people stop coming back." There was a vote. Stone lost. His diary entry from that night is 3 words. They did not listen. Question 49. What did you do on the night of September 23, 1952? I know what Stone did. I have his diary. He drove 400 miles to check on the 3rd franchise location. He arrived at 11 p.m. He went into the kitchen. He tasted the gravy. It was wrong. The franchisee had changed the recipe. Tried to save money on the chicken stock. Stone fired him on the spot. Not legally. They worked it out later. But in that moment, Stone told him, "You're done. Get out of my kitchen." The franchisee, a man named Donald Sullivan, told this story to a reporter in 1971. He said, "Colonel Stone grabbed the pot and poured the whole batch down the sink. 10 gallons. He made me stand there and watch. Then he made a new batch himself. Took him an hour. He made me taste it. I could barely tell the difference. He said, "That's why it's my name on the sign." Sullivan said, "He was right, though. I tasted the difference the next day. So did the customers." Question 50 is about the sale. In 1964, Stone sold the company for $2 million. His lawyer told him it was worth $8 million, minimum. Stone signed anyway. His daughter told me why. She was there. She was 26. She watched him sign. She said he was tired. She said he'd been fighting them for 3 years, every meeting, every decision. They wanted to change everything. The breading, the oil, the gravy. He fought them on everything. He won some, he lost some, but he was 74, and he was tired. She said, he told me, they'll ruin it, but at least I won't have to watch. But he did watch. For 14 more years. The company went public in 1966. Stone kept 1% of the stock. He watched it grow to £4 billion. He did not spend the money. His daughter told me he lived in the same house, drove the same car, well, a newer version, wore the same white suit. People thought it was an act, the Colonel character, but that was just him. She said, he'd go to franchise locations, not for appearances. He'd just go, order the chicken, taste it. Sometimes he'd go back to the kitchen and show them how to do it right. Most of them didn't know who he was anymore. Some of them thought he was crazy. She said, once, in 1978, a manager called the police, said there was an old man in the kitchen yelling about gravy. By the time they got there, Dad had already left. Question 51. When did you know you were out of time? Stone was 62 when he slept in the Ford. He had failed at everything before that. He ran a ferry boat. Failed. He sold insurance. Failed. He sold tires. Failed. He ran a service station. Failed. He ran a restaurant. It burned down. He ran another restaurant. The highway got rerouted. He was broke. He was 62 years old and he had $407. And he had a recipe for fried chicken. His diary from that period, August 1952, has an entry I keep coming back to. August 19th. He writes, slept in the car again. Back hurts. Smith said no today. That makes 43. The chicken is perfect. They are fools. August 27th. Phone bill due. Cannot pay. Car needs oil. Drove to Henderson's restaurant. Cooked chicken in his kitchen. He tasted it. He said it was good. He said no anyway. 51. September 3rd. Birthday today, 63. Claudia sent a card. Did not call. Cannot blame her. Made chicken at the boarding house. Mrs. Patterson said I could use her kitchen. She said it was the best chicken she ever had. I asked her if she wanted to buy a franchise. She laughed. There's a gap then. No entries for 2 weeks. Then September 18th. Harmon called. He wants to do it. First one. I am shaking as I write this. I interviewed Pete Harmon's son in 2019. His father died in 2014. But the son remembered Stone. He said, Colonel Stone came to our restaurant every month for the first 5 years, just to check. He'd show up unannounced, go straight to the kitchen, taste everything. If something was wrong, he'd fix it. He'd stay as long as it took. He said, my father told me Stone slept in his car for the first year, even after the franchise started making money. Dad offered to pay for a hotel. Stone said no. He said he didn't want to get comfortable yet. He said, Dad asked him once, "When will you get comfortable?" Stone said, "When I have 100, then I'll know it's real." Question 52. Did you ever get comfortable? I don't think he did. His daughter told me he had nightmares, right up until the end. She said, he'd dream he was back in the car. He'd wake up confused. He'd look around and not know where he was. He'd say, "Did Harmon say yes yet?" I'd have to remind him. Tell him it already happened. Tell him there were thousands of restaurants now. She said, he'd calm down, but he never looked relieved. He'd just nod and say, "Then they're making the gravy wrong in thousands of places." The answer to my question, the one I keep returning to, is this. A man of 62 has something a man of 32 does not. He has the knowledge that time is not infinite. That is the thing that makes it work. Not optimism, not energy, not fearlessness. Terror. Pure, simple terror. Stone knew he was out of time. That's why he slept in the car. That's why he drove 800 miles in a day to check a batch of gravy. That's why he didn't get comfortable. Because getting comfortable meant accepting that this was his last chance. And if he accepted that, he might realize it was already too late. I am 58 years old. I have 4 years. Maybe 5. I keep adding to the list. But I know now why I keep adding to it. As long as the list grows, I don't have to answer the questions. I don't have to sleep in the car. I don't have to find out if I'm too late. Last week, I tasted the chicken at a franchise location in Manchester. The gravy was wrong. Stone would have known it immediately. I didn't seem to even notice until I was halfway through. That's the difference between us. That's the difference between a man who builds something and a man who interviews the daughter of a man who built something. I am 58 years old. Question 53 is this. What are you going to do about it? I don't have an answer yet. But I'm out of time to keep asking.